Welcome back to another video for the Linux and SQL series. And now we're going to reach the tipping point for the SQL portion of the series. So what I'm going to do is actually perform an SQL query as far as the overall arching theme of this particular video within the activities that I'll be performing here. So I went over at least prior to recording, I went over basic SQL queries, pretty much to retrieve information from a database, right? And I also went over, and I'll talk about this in another video, just not in this one, about using the order by keyword. Now, these are the most basic functions that I'm going to cover here, just to be able to build out these later for more advanced queries or advanced fundamentals of SQL. Again, these are all basic to make me more of a well-rounded security professional, right? Cybersecurity professional. Now, using, as I mentioned, using the order by to sort data returned in an ascending or a descending order, right? So what I'm going to do is actually use select and from in SQL to return the information I need from a database, right? So I'll also use the order by, which is the one I just mentioned originally, keyword to sequence information returned by a query based on a specified column. Now, it's important to know, of course, how to query information from a database because this is a common task that one might encounter as a security professional, depending on your role, of course, to the company. But one should know how to get the information that's needed to improve security and keep data safe, right? With that in mind, let's get into our scenario. So um, let's just say I have to determine which employee devices must be updated, right? And I also need to investigate user login activity to explore if any unusual activity has occurred, especially if some remote work. It's really tedious, right? But the information I need is located in the machines and login underscore attempts tables in the organization database. I'm going to do a few tasks of showcasing how to get all of these done as far as obtaining information on the employee's devices that must be updated, then examining the login attempts for unusual activity, and then finally using the order by keyword to sort the data returned by my SQL query. So let's go ahead and get started with first retrieving the employee device data. So of course, again, as I mentioned, I need to obtain information on employee devices because my team needs to update them. Now, the information I need is, as I mentioned, in the machines table in the organization database. So I'll need to retrieve all that information. So let's go ahead and, okay, let's do that. From right, perfect. That should do it. All right. Just like I mentioned, user error always forget in SQL, standard query at to end it with this. And then I'll be able to get all of these wonderful things as far as the employee device data. So now we can see the output returns all of the contents that we need as far as as far as the employee device data or device information from the machines table, right? It just quite a large, that's why I got tongue tied there for a second, quite a large amount of data. Now, just want to focus on the email client running on, let's say, a few devices, right? So let's say I run the query. Let's do this here. Next. um, right. Let's see. Perfect. All right, so let's see here. 8, 3, 5. Right, perfect. I'm just peeking through now. What I need to do is need information on the OS used on various devices on their last patch date. So I'm going to query to return the device ID, the OS, and the OS patch date columns from the machine. So um, let's do right. Right. Uh, okay, perfect. So let's see. Yep, everything looks good. Um, yeah, everything looks pretty good, pretty up to date. So this allows me to move on to my next task, which is to investigate some login activity. So what I'll be doing is analyzing the information from login attempts, that table, to determine if any unusual activity has occurred. So of course, I need to investigate the locations where the login attempts were made to ensure that they're the expected areas. In this particular scenario, would be the United States, Canada, or Mexico, or North America, essentially, right? So I'm just going to write a query to select the VIN ID and country columns from the login attempts table. So um, let's do that. There we go. Perfecto. So let's see if anything was made just from a quick glance. So far, everything is pretty much all in North America. Unless one snuck past me. The USA and the US thing is kind of throwing me off just a tad bit, but nonetheless, everything looks pretty cool as far as at least the location where the login attempts took place. Now I need to check to see if the login attempts were made outside of the organization's working hours. So I'm going to write another query that focuses on, let's say, the username, login date, and time, of course, from the login attempt. So same template essentially for how to obtain this information. We just inputting differently what information we want from it. So let's say we want the, okay, whenever you're ready, username, right? We want the login date. We want login time. And we want it from, okay, I feel like I want to work. There we go. Perfecto, right? Let's take a look here. Some pretty peculiar times, right? So let's see. Hmm, all right, not too bad. I mean, some are semi peculiar, but you never know where projects are being worked on, right? So now what I need to do is get a complete picture of all the login attempts, right? I have everything here, but I want a complete picture of what things should look like, right? Or what I'm not going to say what they should look like, but what they actually look like, but put in a better fit as far as visually what's easier to digest as far as visually what's on the screen. So I'm going to write another query that selects all the columns from the login attempts table using a single symbol, right? So let's do Oh, right. Let's see. Okay. Oh, it's up new. Okay, let me figure this out here. So let's try another picture. There we go. I'm not sure why it slipped my mind. Maybe a bit tired, but nonetheless, I successfully wrote a query that selects all the columns from the login attempts table. So it could give actually more of a robust because you can actually see the IP, the time, the date, and the location for where the login attempts actually occurred. And now what I'm going to do for my next task, now that I have all of this robust information, I'm going to actually order login attempts data, right? So I'm just going to need to use the order by keyword, which I mentioned at the beginning of the video. So I'll sequence that data that my query returns according to the login data time. So what I'm going to do is let's do select pretty much everything. Then we're going to do from, right? Let's do oops. All right, and then we want order. Let's do, turn that on. Perfect. And we could just, confirm here with our own eyes. So login date, it has it here. It starts May 8th of 2022. And then we go into the 9th and then eventually to the 10th and so on and so forth. So nonetheless, we're able to order them by login attempts with the login data other. So now what I need to do is further organize these results by ordering them by login time. Um, I actually do this in my personal life. I'm very neurotic when it comes to sorting out and ordering things. So this is actually kind of therapeutic for me to do the last sorts of this exercise here. But nonetheless, let's move forward. So I'm just going to need to further organize. So I'm going to modify the query from the previous query I just did by adding the login time to the order by clause. And actually, you'll see it here. If it chooses to scroll down for me, let's see if I can use the arrow. Looks like nothing's working on there. It is. Okay. Select back on. Right. And then right. And then order by okay. In date. um, let's see. And let's see. Login time. To make sure that it was properly. Perfect. So let's take a look. Perfect. So it is ordered by login time, which actually should be the, depending on how you want to search or what the reasons are, just from personal preference, I like it to be ordered by time so I can see some sort of sequence, right, of what's happening over time in a chronological order. That's just again my my way of thinking, not necessarily meaning that um, that's the correct way to do it. It just depends on what you're looking for and why, right? But nonetheless, this brings us to the conclusion of the video for performing a standard query language query, right? So I've showcased practical experience in just running basic SQL theories, nothing crazy. Selecting specific columns from a table, selecting all columns from a table using an asterisk, right? And sorting query results by using the order by keyword, which is very helpful. Again, as I mentioned before, these are very basic queries that are pretty much just going to form the foundation for running more advanced queries and applying filters later, which I'll actually do in this series. So nonetheless, in the meantime, until the next video, stay curious, stay secure.